Well, hello, friends. Elizabeth here. Welcome to the Wisdom Journey. Today we're on day 31, Proverbs 31, and we already did a video just for the ladies about what the characteristics of a virtuous woman is, right? And so I wanted to add a little bit more something for the gentlemen, right? What are the characteristics of a godly man? So I wanted to shout out to my friend Brisa that invited me to this conference where I got to meet some men of God that shared with me their wisdom. In fact, one of them gave me some their notes. So shout out to Pastor Mark Green out of London, England, and then local here, Pastor Chaplain out of New Braunfels, Texas, Johnny Falcon, and Brisa and her boss Don Redman, I believe. So thank you so much, because then I got information. So this is not from me what I think men, what a godly man should be like. It's from men, what they feel like, right? And sharing me their input. So we covered Proverbs 31, women's the virtuous women characteristics. So now let's cover chapter 31, the part that's that's for the men. And so remember, we said that we don't know who King Lemuel is, if it's King Solomon, incognito, right? But the author of this chapter says that his mom gave him this advice. So start off in verse 2. What should I say, my son? What son of my womb? What son of my vows? Don't spend your energy on women or your efforts on those who destroy kings. It's not for kings, Lemuel. It's not for kings to drink wine or for rulers to desire beer. Otherwise, he will drink, forget what is decreed, and pervert justice for all oppressed. Give beer to the one who is dying and wine to those whose life is bitter. Let him drink so that he can forget his poverty and remember his troubles no more. Let me continue. Speak up for those who have no voice, for the justice of all who are dispossessed. Speak up, judge righteously, and defend the cause of the oppressed and the needy. So she's saying, stay away from wine, stay away from women, the women that destroy kings, so women that don't have virtuous characteristics, and we already know all the things that we need to see in a woman. So this is what King Solomon or King Lemuel's mother is advising him. And then just a little interjection there on like, hey, who can drink wine? Remember, it's all about balance. So here says a person who is dying and who is bitter at life, so they can forget their problems. So the reason I think their mother would say that is like, okay, these people are not ruling. This man's about to die. So let him die sort of in this elated feeling. This person is really miserable. Let him drink a little wine so he can forget, what's going on. But she's saying, you, King Lemuel, are a king. You are decreeing. You have really big responsibilities. You cannot drink, because then your judgment won't be sound. So let's not say, oh, his mom said, if I'm have a bad day, I can drink, or I'm not feeling good. No, right? When you have a lot of responsibilities, and we've already talked about, it's just not worth it. Okay. So I'm going to jump now to some of the input that my other brothers in Christ shared. And this is from the story of Ruth, Boaz. So the story goes in the book of Ruth that a family in Israel or Judah, there was a big famine, and a family, Naomi, the wife, the husband, Elimelech, and her two sons moved to a foreign country to look for food, right, and a better life. And when they're there, of course, the sons marry the wives from that region, so they were foreigners. They were not of the Christian faith. The husband dies, and then the two men die. So now we have three widows. One of the gals, so the widow decides, the mother-in-law widow says, hey, I have to go back to my home country to get help. So one of her daughter-in-law says, well, I'm staying here. this is my home country. Another daughter-in-law, Ruth, says, you know what? I will go with you. And it's a very popular verse, where you go, I will go, and I will serve the God that you serve. And so that's Ruth. So Ruth and Naomi make their way back to Judea, and so they don't have a lot of money. They're destitute, they're widows. And so Ruth starts working. There's a big crops, there's a lot of harvesting. And so one of the things that business or farmers, crop owners would do to help the poor is that they will allow the poor people to come by and pick up the leftovers from what was left from the crop pickers, the official harvesters. And so that way they can eat. So Ruth, did that so her and her mother-in-law can eat. So extremely humbling. She left her hometown. Her husband died, her father died, and now she's in a foreign country, and she's doing one of the most humiliating jobs, which is, picking up after the harvesters, whatever is left. And it ends up that the crop that she started gleaning from is from a man named Boaz. So that's what we're going to focus on this man and his characteristics. This man is actually not a priest. He is a farmer. He is a businessman. And so one of the things that we see is that he seeks her and he asks about her. And so they tell him the story that, she is doing all of this for her mother-in-law. And so he comes to her and talks to her, and he actually praises her, and he said, hey, wow, can't believe that you're doing that, good job. And so then the other thing that he does, he first he gives her a greeting and says, do I have it here? He actually greets her with saying, God bless you. So he is a man that has God's words in his mouth. And remember, he is at work. He is not at church. He is at work. He is with his team, with his employees. And so he blesses her. The Lord be with you is exactly what he says, and gets information about her. And so then what he does is he prays for her. He praises her, right? Says, hey, good job. I commend you on what you're doing for your mother-in-law. And then he says, hey, he sees that she is vulnerable. So he says, hey, stay nearby, stay with the ladies, his official employees, the ladies that are harvesting, stay nearby them. And he says, I've told my men not to touch you, not to harm you. Just so happened that this particular time in Judea, the people were not living according to God's law. So it was very lawful. A lot of things were happening that shouldn't be. So it was very dangerous for her, even in that town. So he said, hey, I told my men not to touch you. Stay with these women. Don't go to the other crops because he can't protect her there. And then he tells her where there is water, and then says, hey, go ahead and eat with my harvesters. And then he tells the men, leave some extra of what the grains that they were harvesting, leave some extra stalks so then she can pick that up, and do not humiliate her. So then here you see a man that is showing all these godly traits, not at church, but in his everyday life. So then, of course, this is sort of like a romantic story, right? Ruth is looking for a husband, a redeemer. And so she tells her mother-in-law, wow, I went to this place, and I'm being treated this way. And then her mother-in-law says, hey, that is a family member. Maybe he can redeem us. And so there's a plan of how she's going to talk to him, and she comes at night and talks to him, and you'll have to read the whole story, but she puts him in a place where he could have easily taken advantage of her. Here is a man that is powerful, that is older. He knows that she is vulnerable, and he respects her. He protects her dignity. And so he even says, hey, don't tell people that you came here at night. And then she tells him, hey, can you marry me? So he even respects that. In that culture, there's a hierarchy of who has a right to redeem a woman. So there was other relatives that were closer in relationship to her than he was. So then he went out and first said, hey, to the other people that could marry her, are you interested? He was respectful of the law. And so they said, hey, go ahead, you can redeem her. And he redeemed her. So here again, you see a man that it protects a woman. He does not take advantage of her. He could. And then he respects the law. He had self-control. And so that's something that for ladies, does the man that you're courting, the man that you're interested in, does he have self-control when it comes to sexual purity? Let's see what else. Does he treat people with grace? He was very graceful to her. You can see that the way he communicates with his workers, that he is teaching his workers how to treat people that are vulnerable. So he's actually an example of God's grace. He's not embarrassed to say, hey, we are going to protect this woman, where he can easily say, hey, let's take advantage of her. So this man is dependent on God. He is caring for those around him. He is concerned for the poor. He protects the vulnerable. He is generous. He is joyous. There's a place, I think, where they're actually celebrating. He is sexually pure, and he is community minded. And so these are the characteristics that you want to see in a man. And just like when it comes to women, we said, does he fear the Lord? So this man fears the Lord and wants to abide by his rules. Even though no one has seen him at night, he decides that he's going to honor God, and he's going to honor this young lady. And then also the laws of the community, that everyone knows that, hey, you can't marry her until there's the other gentleman get the first right of refusal. So make sure that you as a man, you are honoring God everywhere you go, not just in the church. So sometimes we feel like our significant other has to be working at church. We find our significant others in different places of our lives, different areas. So it's like, are they following God there in their workplace? So in his workplace, this man is showing grace, showing integrity. So ladies, you have to see, is the guy that I'm talking to, does he show grace everywhere he goes? Does he treat people with dignity? And so then one of the other gentlemen shared with me Psalms 24. So he asked me, he's like, tell the gentlemen that are watching, are they a Psalms 24 men? So like we have Proverbs 31 woman, Psalms 24. I thought I had it here. There we go. So I am going to jump around, but it's mainly Psalms 24, verse 4. The one who has clean hands and a pure heart. So find you a man that has clean hands and a pure heart, or you men, be the man who has a clean hands and pure heart, who's not appealed to what is false, and who has sworn and who has not sworn deceitfully. He will receive blessings from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. So that is the Psalms 24 man, and then also Psalms 15. So, what type of character do you want to have, men? What type of character, ladies, do you want to find in the man of God? Is one who lives blamelessly, practices righteousness, and acknowledges the truth in his heart, who does not slander with his tongue, who does not harm his friend or discredit his neighbor, who despises the one rejected by the Lord, but honors those who fear the Lord, who keeps his word, whatever the cost, who does not lend his silver and interest or take a bribe against the innocent. The one who does these things will never be shaken. So there is your man of God. So there, in the story of Boaz, you see the characters of manly men and women. So what we studied on the Proverbs 31 woman, it was a depiction, but we see Ruth actually living it out. She was working, she was sacrificing, and then she was she treated this man also with honor and respect. And so she actually lived out those virtues. And then Boaz as well. You see a man here that is working hard, he is responsible, he is a protector, not just of the physical, but also of the spiritual. And he is a provider. So men, you have to make sure that you are protecting, you are providing, but not just you know, your girlfriend or your wife, but also the community. And so those are some of the notes for the men. Let's see what else here. We said make sure he's generous and not greedy. And let's see. And to see the type of example that this man is showing in the workplace. All right. So this is a little shorter, right? But I just wanted to share something for the men as well. And so God bless you all. We're done. We're done. And I know it's been 31 days, right? So good job. And like I mentioned, I'm going to have a video with links of our Zoom meeting. If you can make it, I'll have a couple of options so we can just have a final discussion on what you have learned in this journey. All right. God bless you. Bye-bye.